Hi, Mom with Mom Cooks and Gardens. So tonight we're going to make a chicken pot pie, and I thought I would top it with like a biscuit mix. All right, so I cooked up 3 chicken thighs. It's about 1.5 cups of diced chicken there, so it's pre-cooked. I've got about 16 ounces of mixed vegetables. I used peas, corn, and I diced up some carrots. But I also like the addition of celery, so I did about 1/4 cup of celery diced. About 1 cup, they say 1.5 cups. I like 1 cup of onion. It's nice and even. I used 1 onion. I have 4 tablespoons of flour and 3/4 of a teaspoon of rosemary and 3/4 of fresh thyme. And then I have 2 1/3 cups of chicken broth. I'll also be adding about 1 cup of cream. So to make things easy, I went ahead and had cooked my chicken in this cast iron skillet. And to it, I added 4 tablespoons of butter, which promptly melted in the warm pan. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on a medium heat, and we're going to brown or saute our onion and celery. All right, so our butter is starting to warm up, and I have in there the juices from the chicken as well. I think that'll add a nice flavor to the roux we're going to make. But we want that roux to have some flavor in and of itself, which is why we're going to saute the celery and the onions. This will help build body. And to get that going, I'm also going to do a couple cracks of salt to help sweat out those onions. And a little bit of cracked pepper. So we're going to saute these until they're soft and just starting to brown. All right, so our onions are simmering away nicely. They start to soften, so has the celery. I'm really happy with the stage that they're in. So next I'm going to add in that flour. Actually, I think what I want to do is add in my spices as well. That way they can get a little warmth. So there, I'll mix the spices in. Again, that's about 3/4 of a teaspoon of rosemary and thyme. I use fresh rosemary and thyme because it's still going strong in the garden. And then to it, I'm adding that 1/4 cup of flour. And we're gonna combine that and just get that flour cooking so it doesn't taste raw. Essentially what we're building is a roux. And it's gonna simmer, get golden brown, and take on sort of a nutty smell or aroma. And then we can add in our liquids. All right, so it's starting to take on a slightly darker hue, or at least that flour is. And when I push it to the side, you can see the flour that sticks to the bottom is sort of a light tannish as opposed to being white. And it has that nutty aroma. So now is the time that we're going to start introducing our liquids. And I think I'll go with the chicken broth first. And I'm going to give that a good stir. By keeping it moving and adding the liquid in small batches, it'll keep it from getting clumpy or lumpy. So when I see that it's nice and relatively smooth, except for the celery and onions, is when I'm going to add in the milk. So here's a cup of milk. Now you can use half and half if you want it super creamy. I did toy with the idea of using some of the buttermilk that I'm going to make the biscuit topper with, but since I have milk in there, I thought, you know what, let me use up some of this milk that's been in there. We bought it for cocoa. We haven't been drinking a lot of cocoa, so waste not, want not. And we're gonna go ahead and turn that up to about a medium heat, and we're gonna keep it moving, keep it in motion until it starts to thicken. Okay, so the sauce is starting to thicken up. And I can tell by just stirring it, I can feel it on the bottom. And I want that to get like a white gravy, a thick white gravy consistency. It's getting there. It smells wonderful. This would be the time that you could add in a little bit of extra salt or black pepper. I personally think at this juncture it's got enough of both. The sodium in the chicken broth has it nicely seasoned, and the pepper and the salt that we added to the onions seems to be just right. So I'm not going to add any additional at this time, but if you wish to, now would be the time. So I broke out the whisk just because it's getting thicker and thicker and I want to keep it moving. But I feel like the consistency is really getting there. So if you can see, it's coating nicely. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and turn off the heat. And next we're gonna stir in our meat and vegetables. So this is our chicken. And this is our mixed vegetable. So this is a good time to judge how much pot pie you're going to end up with. I usually like to make this in this 12-inch skillet. But I don't want it to bubble over or be too full. We still have to accommodate those muffins. Now, Scott would like a crispy crust, so what we're gonna do, yeah, this looks great. I'm gonna combine the last of those vegetables. I held off just in case it was too much, but it doesn't look like it is. Here we go. So this is gonna be really hearty. It's got plenty of ingredients. It's not going to be runny at all. And what I'm gonna do is, I'm going to, since I only have one 12-inch skillet, I'm going to transfer it into one of these, my large glass baking, I guess you call it a cup. It's kind of like a cup. But I'll go ahead and spoon that in there, and that way I can wash out the pan and then put in the pie crust. Okay, now that we've made the filling, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the drop biscuits. So I have about 1.5 cups of white flour, and to that I've added about, I would say 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/4 cup of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I also added about 1 tablespoon of parsley and maybe about 1/2 teaspoon of rosemary. And I'm going to take 6 tablespoons of cold butter, and I kind of cubed this all up. Let's see if I can break this up. And I like to use my butter when it's ice cold, because what we're going to do is knead it in to the mixture. So basically I have like a pastry cutter, and this lets me cut the butter in. Basically we want really tiny little pieces of butter, like suspended in our flour. So it gets like a crumbly consistency. All right, that looks good to me. So next, I'm gonna combine the buttermilk. So I have about 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk. This is cultured buttermilk, so it's very, very thick. And you want to stir that in till it's just about combined. You don't want to overwork it, or you'll end up with like tough biscuits. Same is true of muffins. I think that's perfect. See how it's kind of sticky and crumbly? That's what we want. Now I'm going to put that in the refrigerator while I get this pie crust. So our pie crust has been defrosting, and again I'm going with these ready-to-made Pillsbury pie crusts. So I've had it out of the refrigerator for about an hour. And the key is it should have a little spring, and it should unroll fairly easily, which it is. It's going to work out perfect. All right. And I've got my pie pan here. But one thing I am going to do is spritz it with some coconut oil. And I'm doing this so it doesn't stick. I figure once all the filling gets in there and it bakes away, I don't want it stuck to the bottom of the pan. So I'm just kind of stretching it all along the sides. Move that out of the way. Just trying to ease it up the side of the pan. Make sure that it's filling. And then I'm just going to go and create some escapes for any air bubbles. And I think what I'm going to do to make sure that this is a crispy crust is to like par bake it. Getting all the way up the edge, working out any air bubbles. Making sure I have enough steam vents. Okay. So that looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in the oven, which we've had preheating since we started working on the biscuit portion. So I think we're going to do this 10 to 12 minutes. Putting it in on the lowest rack. There we go, 425. So we're coming up on about the 10-minute mark, And our pie crust looks really crispy. I say we let it go just a little bit longer, because even though it looks like it's done, it has a habit of being a little gummy, so we'll go ahead and let it keep going. All right, it's time to take it out. Looks really nice. And now we're going to add our filling and then top it with the biscuit mix. So I'm just sort of smoothing that around, leveling it out. And what I'll do is, since this mix has been sitting for a few minutes out on the cabinet, I'm going to pop it back in while I get the biscuit mix out of the refrigerator so that it can start to heat up. Okay, so here's our biscuit mix. I like to keep it cold in the refrigerator just so that it stays with that crumbly consistency. Some people like to put dollops of the biscuits on top. I find that sometimes they can be too thick and not cook properly, and there, you know, you end up with like burning on the edges and doughy biscuits in the middle. So I treat it more like a crumble. All right. So that's been warming up in the oven while we got that together. And then what we'll do is just kind of spread it out on the surface. I think this type of dish is so great for cold winter, brisk fall weather. I've just been craving it, to be honest. Okay, I have it spread across the surface. Pretty happy with the placement. And I'm going to load it back into the oven. And we're going to let this bake for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll keep checking on it. Sometimes it takes more or less. It really depends on, you know, the ingredients, so we'll check back. All right. So we gave it a minute or two more, and I think it's just about perfect. So that's pretty golden brown. Look at that. The biscuit looks cooked tender all the way through. Nice and cakey. I think that's perfect. And I think when all was said and done, I did it about 24.5 minutes. So, and I'm going to let that sit maybe for about 20 minutes, just so that the pot pie sauce can firm up. It can cool down a little. And if I have to, I can put a lid on it to protect it. All right, so we let the pie sit for like 20, I think it was 20 minutes. And Scott's gonna tell us what he thinks.
It's hands down the best chicken pot pie I've ever had. What I love about it is it's not all runny and missing. I don't want to say flavor, but this is. I'm used to chicken pot pie burning my mouth, not really tasting that good inside. This is the opposite of it. I can't believe how good this is.
All right, so you know what to do if you like this kind of content. Please
Like, subscribe for more, please.
Thanks
And
for
we appreciate
watching.
you watching.